Right, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the U3A Zoom meeting. My name is Simon Buckland and today I'm acting as host for this meeting. In a short while I'll hand over to our Speaker Secretary Nicola, who will introduce the speaker for this session, Peter Almond. But first I'd like to run through a few things, especially for those of you who might be new to Zoom. This will be more like a lecture than a meeting. You will notice that your faces are not visible and that all your microphones are muted. This deters unwanted distractions and prevents intrusions of telephones ringing, participants talking, etc. Firstly, to help yourselves, can you please locate the toolbar ribbon for your Zoom setup? This will usually be at the top or the bottom of your device. It does vary by type, iPad, iPhone, etc. But this tool ribbon will provide access to help and also a tool to submit questions. If you encounter a problem, like no sound, you can raise your hand on screen. To do this, use the participant tab on your tool ribbon and you will see an option to raise your hand. When we see this, the panelists will try and make contact with you to provide assistance. If you wish to ask questions, there is also a way of submitting these via Zoom, and we would like you to ask questions. In the tool ribbon, you will see a tab called Q&A. If you open this, you should get a panel appear on your screen. You can use this panel to type in and to submit your questions. All the questions will wait until the end when Nicola will pose them to Peter. And if there are many similar questions, Nicola may consolidate them. You'll be able to see the questions and also you may be able to upvote them, meaning that if there's any particular ones that stand out, please vote them up and they're the ones that stand the best chance of being asked. I hope this is clear. Also on the ribbon is the ability to send a message or online chat with the panelists only. Now this webinar is being streamed on YouTube and will continue to be available for anyone who is unable to register. So I hope you all understood that. And without further ado, I'll now pass over to our Speaker Secretary, Nicola Lindsay, who will introduce our speaker for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us on the exciting occasion of our very first online speaker talk, delivered very appropriately by one of our own members, Peter Almond. In the last few weeks, those of us who've been able to get out and about have really appreciated a daily walk, discovering lots of paths and routes in our local area. Consider then how our guest speaker today must have felt when he took on a walk on a much grander scale. Not for him a stroll around the block, but the epic walk from Land's End to John of Groats. Peter Almond is a former defence correspondent of the Daily Telegraph and Washington Times, who decided on retirement that there was no better time to set off on a new challenge, alongside his dog Henry, and at the same time raise money for the service charity Hounds for Heroes. If you have questions for Peter, please do not leave them to the end, but submit them during the course of the talk so that I can pass them on to Peter at the end. This then is the story of Peter and Henry's very long walk.
Hello, and welcome to my voyage of rediscovery of the land of my youth. This sceptred isle known as mainland Britain, or to be precise, Le Jog, L-E-J-O-G, Land's End to John of Groats. You can do it the other way round, but then it becomes joggle, J-O-G-L-E, which to me doesn't sound so exotic and means you get the wind and the rain in your face. Apologies first from my best friend Henry, who sadly went off to that great walk in the sky in early April, aged nearly 16. He's looking down though, if for no other reason than to make sure I don't tell too many porkies about him. To most people, Land's End to John of Groats is the longest race you can do in the UK. 874 miles as the crow flies. From the fastest driver, 9 hours, 36 minutes in a souped up Audi S5, which must have massively breached the speed limit, to the fastest lawnmower, 5 days, 8 hours, 36 minutes. That was done in August last year. Pete and Henry walking, 4 months, give or take a week, and 1,235 miles. So why? Well, we've got these maps here, the Ordnance Survey 1 to 25,000 scale map, 2.5 inches to the mile or 4 centimeters to 1 centimeter, world of adventure filled with little green dotted lines denoting footpaths and rights of way across fields, streams, mountains and through towns and villages. I grew up as an RAF brat in East Anglia and Yorkshire with fields, streams, trees and ponds as my playground, then forgot about them when I became a city-based journalist. My wife and I spent 20 years in the US Midwest, Boston and Washington. Try taking a walk across farmers' fields in Ohio, and you're likely to be arrested as trespassers or shot, possibly both. So it wasn't until we fully returned to England in 1990 that I really became aware of those little green dotted lines. To quote American author Bill Bryson, when he became chairman of the campaign to protect rural England, and I quote, "The countryside remains one of England's supreme achievements. I know of no countryside anywhere that's more universally appreciated, more visited and walked across and gazed upon, more lovely to behold, more comfortable to be in than the countryside of England." And as you can see from this picture here, hope you can spot the white horse at the well, right at the back. That is the Vale of the White Horse. I took one of my teenage sons on a camping hike halfway across Offa's Dyke along the boundary to Wales, and the other teenage son the whole of the North Downs Way from Farnham to Dover. But still, why the whole of Land's End to John O'Groats? Because for the first time in my life, I have the time. I retired at 65 in 2010 and started to get a pension. I was fit. I'd been a runner all my life and had 3 marathons and 117 bushy park runs behind me. As Henry at 7 months old, we brought him as a thoroughbred English Springer. But as he grew older, realized that his shorter legs and larger head suggested something else was in there. Yes, a Staffy, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, probably accounted for some 20% of him. The Springer bit gave him speed and resilience and that marvelous radar nose. The Staffy bit, his strength and wonderful friendliness. Henry and I had already worked close together doing scores of canicrosses, canine cross-country races all over southern England. This was a picture taken for Saga magazine for a story about older people running. At 7 years old, he was as strong as he would ever be with Henry, as he was waiting at my door every day for me to take him out somewhere. But there's still something missing. I didn't want this walk to be just about Henry and me, so I do it for charity. I settled on Hounds for Heroes, partly because it was a brand new military charity focused on raising funds for training assistance dogs for injured service personnel, and partly because Henry was already an ideal assistance dog without any real training. As it turned out, I could have sent him out all on his own. He was such a trooper and money magnet. This is Corporal Michael Lockett on the left, alongside his platoon commander of the 2nd Battalion, the Mercian Regiment. I had met Michael in Afghanistan in 2007 and took this picture of him a year later on his arrival back in Hounslow Barracks, West London. He thought the whole operation there was a waste because he had been unable to save 2 of his best mates in an Afghan ambush. The Queen gave him a military medal for trying anyway, but he didn't want to go back. I remember him saying he didn't want to leave his dog again. He did though, 2 years later, and as Sergeant Lockheed Lockett, MC, he was killed by an IED on his last day in Helmand in September 2009. I thought of some of the other young lads I had met there and elsewhere who did come home alive but with severe injuries, and decided this was at least one way Henry and I could show our support and respect. This is Alan Parton, founder of Hounds for Heroes, with his assistant dog Endel Jr., posting a letter for him. Endel could also operate an ATM, with Alan using a laser to mark buttons on the machine and Endel pressing them with his nose. and was awarded a Dickin Medal, the animal VC, for saving Alan in a traffic accident. The wars may be over for the moment, but the consequences remain for our boys. PTSD lasts for many years. Some 14 former and serving British military personnel are believed to have committed suicide over this last January and February. And just this Monday, the Times reported on the suicide of an SAS medic, noted that his death was one of 5 military suicides in a week. Henry obviously wasn't a trained assistance dog, so maybe that wasn't so vital. Maybe just as important was the close relationship that can develop between human and dog. We could certainly show that, couldn't we? I spent the best part of a year raising sponsorships from big companies and small. Bit by bit, the funds and donations came in. Clothing and equipment, maps from Ordnance Survey, food packages from Burns Dog Food, offers of accommodation, etc. So, this pile goes into one backpack. Henry was
This way. Come on.
specially made for him by 2 Brecken made equipment for the Highlands. Beautifully made, but unfortunately didn't work. It couldn't support the camera I had. Henry's head was all in the way. So we did a practice hike. This is Eddystone Lighthouse to start us on 60 miles of the South Downs Way, in which I learned how to get fresh water from a tap underneath a filthy sheep trough. We also did a 20-mile hike with the Surrey Long Distance Walkers Association, where I learned that it wasn't the type of boots you wore that was important, it was how comfortable your feet were. Several walkers wore wellies and trainers. Back to the map again, what's the strategy? Well, basically you pick your own route. Mine needed to include friends, family, and free military accommodation, as well as hotels, B&Bs and camping, plus 3 breaks, 2 at home for R&R, that is rest and reorganization. Ready? Not quite. Anna, the manager. Who was going to manage all this from headquarters, if not Anna, my wife? She already had enough on the plate, including 2 or 3 U3A groups. But somehow she found herself regularly receiving and remailing to me OS maps in batches and finding B&Bs which would accommodate dogs. Not to mention fielding telephone calls asking, where is he? So we start thinking about route maps. This is the first one, Land's End to Port Scafo. As you can see, going through Maritzion and Mousel. Yes, I learned that one a long time ago. Mousel, not Mousehole. Port Leven to Falmouth and up to Port Scafo. So, curtain opens. Start, May the 8th, Land's End. The Navy sent a helicopter from nearby Culdrose as a salute to us. The Lieutenant Commander who'd arranged this was with us, but in high winds, the aircraft was 10 minutes early and the signpost wasn't set up for us yet. Henry and I ran down, jumped in there just in time for him. He was hovering for about 5 minutes, and then off he went, and then we posted another picture. That's how the sign should have looked at the start. So,
Right, go on in.
This is a first sight of how Henry will operate for the next 1,250
Yes, Henry. Lovely view of rocks on the furthest southern part of England, I think. Right. Here he comes again.
So now we're at the Minack Theatre in Porthcurno. This is a wonderful, unique cliffside amphitheatre, and we just happened to be walking past when a Welsh male voice choir was performing this right there. So now we're up at at the Ship Inn, Mosul. This is our first paid-for accommodation. And it's the first place where Henry tried out his unique self-taught begging talents. Usually, just before the bar gets busy, we go into a pub with Henry puffing and tail-wagging, and the barmaid comes out. She bends down to him and says, "Hello, my lover, would you like a biscuit?" And Henry turns around, he sits on her feet, puts his head in the air, and waits for a descending Becky. Squeals of delight from barmaid, a donation, and a free pint for me. From Mosul through Cornwall to Devon and into Dorset, Henry would remember the billowing sails of a galleon on a swinging sign outside a Ship Inn and drag me across the road to it. Well, that's my excuse for not doing much more than 12 miles a day anyway. St. Michael's Mount, Marazion. And then Henry broke the tent. We're still only 3 days into the walk, and I've been forcibly reminded of a story I was told well before we started this walk. It's of the camper who tied his dog to the tent and walked out to the shower some 100 yards away. When he came out 15 minutes later, all he could see was a trail of rubbish from the direction of his tent, and the dog next to the shower door with the tent around him. I've thought of that, and have tied Henry to my backpack at the back of our tent, and the lead to his collar secured by metal stakes around the titanium frame. I know this is all about dog separation anxiety, but I thought I had it covered. I was in and out of that shower cubicle in 9 minutes, but it didn't matter. He broke a main titanium spar anyway. We only had half a functioning tent until we got to Torbay 3 weeks later. Henry said it was my fault for leaving him. This is Cornish style, bad fall. These styles are tricky if you're carrying a backpack. We rang into some cows and took a detour. One of these styles had a broken step, which tipped me headfirst down and rammed the pack into my right knee. It meant pain pills and some strapping for the next 1,000 miles. We're crossing from Falmouth to the Roseland Peninsula. It's not a very good shot of Falmouth, I'm afraid, but at least it shows a glimpse of the hills beyond, where this next story takes place. We were sitting in a pub at the harbour waiting for the next ferry, and were joined by a young couple who identified themselves as a school teacher and a Plymouth-based submariner. The teacher said she worked in a small secondary school up in those hills, which was so quiet the teenage pupils were crashingly bored. How bored? I asked. Well, she said, one morning she saw 2 girls slumped over their desk in her class. Why? She asked them. Tired, miss, one replied. Why? Up half the night, miss. Doing what? They looked at each other and giggled, reluctant to say. Come on, said the teacher. Cow tipping, miss. Cow tipping? What's that? Well, we go into the fields when it's dark like, see some cows standing up, asleep, like they do, and we sneak up and push them over. Cow tipping. Both her Navy boyfriend and I gave her a very old-fashioned look. But if you Google cow tipping, you actually find quite a bit about it, even to the point of the Daily Telegraph reporting a mathematical proof that it must be a myth, because cows weigh too much. And if the Telegraph says so, it must be true. The school teacher was certain it was true. Personally, I think these kids had her number and been watching too many Beavis and Butthead cartoons. Woo. Right, so May 24th, route map, Port Scatho to Looe, Cornwall. So in Port Scatho, I came across Alan Baptiste, one of the last 14 coast watchers in Britain. Alan was a local publican who, for 25 years, he was a publican. As he put it, he got fed up with people. Mostly, he was fed up with a handful of his dull, boring regulars who spent most of the pub's opening hours stuck silently on stools and chairs during the long winters. So he decided that if he was going to do that, he wanted peace and quiet, and he certainly got that in working in that place. He's now a church warden.
Oh, there's a steep one. Just as well, I've got my backpack. It's hopefully being couriered somewhere. Yeah. Ooh. What's down there, Henry? No cows, are there?
And yes, there were cows. We were making a run for Saxby.
Chased by the bad guys. Oh, don't catch me. Nearly there, Henry. Don't keep pulling. You'll be fine.
This is a view of Loo from the Nelson room of the Gulls Hotel. Finest view in the world in my book, where we slept for 5 nights while Lorraine, our host, offered us a, quote, leapfrog service, unquote, in which we would walk with a light day pack from Loo for a few miles, and she would pick us up on her way back from her Navy job in Devonport. Each morning, she'd take us back to that spot, and wherever we ended up about 6 p.m., she would pick us up, bring us back to Loo, and do the same the next day. So this is a route map of Loo to Paynton. We followed the Arn Plym trail for a while after Plymouth, aiming for the Ashbrington area and some Ullman family heritage villages. I got a sense of the farms where my father lived and worked, and where he was kicked to death by a horse in 1916. Hasler Barracks, Devonport, with Royal Marine dog handlers. We were there for the opening of a new Marines Rehabilitation Centre. My father's first RAF posting in 1930 was to the Mountbatten flying boat base nearby. It was here that he worked alongside aircraftsman Shaw, otherwise known as Lawrence of Arabia. By now, Henry and I have had a Vulcan mind meld, the thing that Mr. Spock in Star Trek does to get into the minds of his enemies. Oh, friends, I know that when Henry wants water, he curls his tongue up over his lips. When he wants food, he slurps his tongue from side to side. And this is a country road in Devon. The sign says to watch out for people and kids. What about dogs? He knows that when we come to a bend in the road, I want him to move to whichever side he can see around the best. And he's already way ahead of me in sixth sense understandings. But I know when he's going to ask me to come into my sleeping bag because he's cold. And when in there, there's nothing in the world that will budge him from the warmth of the bottom of that bag, not even air to breathe. We're with Roger and my cousin Roger and his wife Janet at Dawlish Station. Roger is my retired machinist cousin who spent much of a day fixing our tent. Then with Janet walked with us for much of the way with us from the River Dart to Dawlish. Henry's sixth sense came to the fore again when we walked through their front door, saw their acutely disabled daughter and sat quietly next to her, just letting her stroke him. All the way up to Scotland, he would empathise with humans who were clearly frail or troubled. He came to me on several occasions when I was really struggling uphill with my backpack, coming down to stand next to me, ready to pull with his harness. So we got a route map from Paynton up to Seaton via Exmouth, and along the way, this was Oddicombe Beach north of Torquay. a few months after a cliff collapse. By 2014, the whole of the house above it, to the left, you can just see, had disappeared. And alongside the Torbay Express near Dawlish, not far from the station where London is, could swiftly exit straight to the beach. I don't know if they still can. As a child, I used to strip off my swim trunks immediately after Exeter. A balmy evening with Marines at Lympstone Barracks. And this is near High Peak, north of Ladram Bay. One of my better photos, which now rests very large on the wall of our guest bedroom. This is Salcombe Hill, Sidmouth. Note the very taut lead as Henry pulls me up, a real pal. This was another photo kindly sent to me by a stranger. This time it was Anne Hippokis, a young lady who zoomed past us on the way up, then stopped at the top of the hill to point her camera. She also gave me £5 for hounds. Right, a route map from Seaton to Warminster. We're now off the beaten track and going inland. Ex-Navy friend Rob will be leapfrogging us for the next few days and some 60 miles from Seaton as we explore strange cross-country routes along little green lines on a map. I just had to go out of my way to meet Hazelberry Plucknet, who I swear I saw on the Beverly Hillbillies TV show. Hazelberry Plucknet. This is a secondary cross-country path. This one shows a wooden bridge that was built in about 2005 by the East Devon County Council for £7,000 to help walkers on a right-of-way over a stream. Obviously, the farmer on the other side of this bridge wasn't listening. You can see the exit gate over the cornfield on the other side. There's a blue mark over there. This is the Leland Trail. It's topped with barbed wire by the landowner. There was blood on the plastic that covered the top wire, apparently from a walker who refused to accept this denial of his right of way. And this is the Monarch's Way near Ilchester, at least part of it, overgrown and unlikely to have seen a monarch in centuries. The Ramblers Association, by the way, is very concerned about this continuing loss of public rights of way. In February, it launched a campaign to identify as much of the estimated 10,000 miles of rights of way lost to the public as possible. On the plus side, the farmer here has clearly marked the trail without having to cut away his planting, as he has done here. This one is ambivalent. It appears to be marked through the fields, see it there, but the signpost showing Macmillan Way is overgrown. We did get through eventually and spent the night with the Navy at Yeovilton Air Base, after which we received yet another unusual invitation. As we stopped to put up an umbrella in the village of Compton Portsmouth, a voice boomed out, "Would you like a cup of tea?" It was the voice of Richard, a retired diplomat who had spotted us from his kitchen window, invited us in from the rain, gave us a cup of tea with cheese and a chutney sandwich, and a chat about how cold it was in Somerset compared to Malaysia. Oh, I had to get this one in. This is at Norton-cum-Harden Parish near Ilchester. This little sign to me, with my American specs on, speaks volumes about the essence of England. I wonder how the vicar introduces herself. "Hello, I'm the Reverend Canon Joanna Penberthy, priest in charge of St. John's, United Benefice of Charlton, Musgrove, Cuckington and Stoke Trista with Bayford." Yep, very English. Okay, this is Kingswood Warren, north of Wincanton. We're running late because I took the wrong turn across the A303 and then got lost for the first and only time, having to use the GPS on my Garmin runner's watch. Our host last night, and this, is Wendy, assistant to the garrison commander at Warminster Infantry Training Camp. She has already taken my backpack from Wincanton to the base and arranged a small reception for our arrival. But it is now raining heavily, we are miles behind schedule, and she is increasingly anxious we will not arrive in time. She's phoned me several times. Finally, at 5 p.m., still 8 miles from the camp, she says she'll come and find us. Unbelievably, she does, disappearing into a wood on the edge of a tiny hamlet. Jump into the car, she says. I can't, say I. We have to walk it. Look, I'll drop you just outside the garrison gate and you can walk in. No one will know, she pleads. But you'll know, and I'll know, I answered. If I do this once, I'll do it again, and the whole point of the walk will be lost. This is the entrance to Longleat Safari Park, 5 p.m, with lions roaring for their dinner, followed by literally stopping traffic on the main Frome to Warminster road in pouring rain because there was nowhere to get off the road. We got to Warminster Garrison after a 23-mile hike, missed the reception and collapsed into bed. Henry didn't move for 12 hours. Guess which bed I had? So we got a farewell from Warminster, and we did have another reception the night before because we were there for 2 days, and it was fine. Everybody was very happy, and Wendy even spoke against herself, saying she shouldn't have said that. Just give us a walk in. So anyway, we're ready now to go further on up towards Brimston and Nailsworth, through the Salisbury Plain. I'll cut straight to Nailsworth, Gloucestershire, which we reached along the Vale of the White Horse, and you saw in that second photograph, and the heat of the open Salisbury Plain, with one new thought in mind. Something new has entered my understanding of this walk. It's not just about the paths, the trails, the birds and bees, or even about my dog. It's about the people I meet that I haven't expected. Quick, Marjorie, where's your purse? Give this man some money. It's a familiar sort of call when I tell people what we're doing. I tried to get names and addresses to give receipts, but no one asked for them. They trusted me, and I guess I wasn't used to that from strangers. Maybe it was rural people, maybe or people on holiday, maybe it was the military-friendly part of the world I was in. Maybe it was Henry fronting a noble cause, or simply because, after nearly 50 years of cynic hardening journalism, I'd forgotten that most people wanted to be naturally kind, helpful and trusting. Such as Michelle, walking her dog near Lower Compton, Wiltshire, whom I asked where I could buy some water now that the local pub was obviously closed down. She could have said there's a shop along here, 3 miles away. But she took us to her home nearby, gave Henry all the cool water he could possibly need, and me 2 large ice lollies, a donation to the hounds and a rest. There was the couple who ran the Wiltshire Village Shop of the Year at Steeple Ashton, and gave us an entire packed lunch and a £20 donation. And Sergeant Matt Greensmith and his wife Leslie, who looked after us for several days at Isle of Lynham. Matt was a Hercules loadmaster who was suddenly told I was coming to Lynham and to look after us for 2 nights. He and Leslie did much more than that. Instead of the mostly deserted officers' mess, he took us to his and Leslie's home, installing us in their daughter's bedroom, feeding us, and then leapfrogging us for days through Malmesbury and almost to Nailsworth, far beyond what he was asked to do. And so it was, all the way up through England and Scotland. So here was I at the end of the first third of Land's End to John O'Groats with a well-earned pint of Mayor's Bitter made by an old school friend in the basement of a pub in Nailsworth. After which, 10 days at home, rest, knee professionally strapped, with accompanying painkillers and more routes and accommodation sorted out. So we're back on the track. This is July the 4th. This is the map from Brownshill, Nailsworth, up to Meriden near Solihull. Anna's brother Rob leapfrogs us for 4 days to Broadway, Cotswolds. Strapping Joss Jones, 20, of Derby, came up fast behind me on the Cotswolds Way. The only person I met going from Land's End to John O'Groats with just a long break in Derby. No backpack, no tent. His mother met him every evening with her camper van. Broadway Tower, highest point in Gloucestershire, at whose cafe Henry got more fuss, I got a free sandwich and 2 more donations. Another long day. As you can see, we're on the Cotswold Way, 18.3 miles that went fruitlessly past the only pub, as you can see behind there, has closed and up for sale. Then we were along the old rail track to Stratford-on-Avon racecourse at 11 p.m, where we pitched our tent in the wrong place. And in the morning, found that we had company, Judy, a lady in her 60s who was on her way from northeast Scotland to visit her daughter on the south coast. She'd spent her hotel money on the very last ticket to see Taming of the Shrew in Stratford, so was camping. She's on the left. I asked where in Scotland she had come from, and she said I'd never have heard of it. Alness. It rang a bell, and I found Alness north of Inverness on a list of places in Scotland we hadn't yet found accommodation for. Oh, you and Henry must come and stay, she said, and we did. More later. So this is a route map from of Meriden to Ashbourne in Derbyshire. So I had to get this in, the M6 east of Birmingham. Bye-bye, whizzy motorists in your metal boxes. You have no idea what's on either side of you. I'll skip over the next bit leading up to Yorkshire, except to mention that in a canal boat near Tamworth, a 98-year-old veteran gave us £100 for hounds. And this is the Grand Union Canal, Midlands towpath country. Much of this was the Heart of England way. Near Coventry, I, or Henry, were propositioned by an attractive lady in a Range Rover who was pulling into her driveway in a quiet country road. She said her husband was out of the country and would we like to come in. I don't have a picture of her Range Rover, or her husband to fill this place, this space. I think I was a bit dazed, bothered and confused at this point. This is the JCB Academy, which is, we were near Hampton in Arden. Henry rolled in such a disgusting pile of dead bird or fox that it took me over 2 hours to scrub him clean in the bathtub of the 4-star Manor Hotel in Meriden. Near Lichfield, the family sergeant at the Army's medical headquarters told me that if ever I was desperate for water on a walk, I could survive by looking for fresh elephant dung, squeezing the water out and drinking it. A trick she'd learned from training in Kenya. I'll keep that in mind for Yorkshire. Maybe we need that elephant tip sooner rather than later, as Sid's campground at Doveridge, the worst sight on our entire walk. We were the only customers. This was a shower block with his loo and wash basin. So now we're moving up to July the 19th here. This is the map from Ashbourne to Haworth, West Yorkshire. We were at the start of the still new Pennine Bridleway, which would quickly run parallel to the Pennine Way. This bit ran on an old railway from Ashbourne, which was faster and easier to walk over than the Derbyshire peaks. Always keep in mind the aim is to reach John O'Groats, not to climb every hill in the country. So this is the Pennine Bridleway at Chee Valley, their old mine workings. And this one's the Tissington Trail. They're old train tracks, but now used for bikes and walking. Hinchley Wood! We're Home, Henry. Almost home anyway, but this is Derbyshire. Sorry. Still, we did walk through Hinchley Wood. See the dotted line there. This was Saddleworth Moor near Glossop. We're back on the Pennine Way. And Carol, owner of a B&B at Upper Mill where we stayed. She wanted to keep Henry. She almost succeeded by bribing me with a roast chicken dinner with Caesar salad and white wine, followed by rhubarb pie and custard. Desperately needed proper food. Over the last 260 miles, I'd lost 1.5 stone. That's my feet at Broadhead Noodle Reservoir, Denshore, Lancashire. My guaranteed Solomon boots are just starting to leak. 600 miles in, I'll get no charge replacements at Skipton. They will need replacing again in another 600 miles at John O'Groats. Actually, I did it back in Kingston. For some reason, they guaranteed them no matter what. I guess the manufacturers didn't think that people would be walking short distances, a short time period over so many miles. So here we are at the Stoodley Pike Monument in Todmorden, West Yorkshire, which marks both the battles of Waterloo and Crimea. Haworth, West Yorkshire, Bronte territory. Arrival with my sister Judy, brother-in-law Tony and family, with local police and fire. That's my brother-in-law on the left there with the flag. And a fundraiser at Broughton Village Hall. And a special cake for Henry and me at the New Inn pub in Willesden. We took a weekend break here with my sister. Back on the trail. There's a route map showing Haworth up through Grassington to Buckton, North Yorkshire. Okay, we've lost one. This is a rare shot of me listening to music on the walk. I thought about having Vaughan Williams running set, but it's a bit too light and woolly for this kind of walking. So I'm listening to blues, funk, and 80s disco, decidedly. Kids kept asking me why I hardly ever listen to music while I'm walking. Mostly I tell them it's because I'm listening to the sounds of nature, the wind, the birds, the animals, the traffic, and cows sneaking up from behind. They don't quite understand. Route map, Pennine Way, Buckton to Greenhead, County Durham. We're aiming for the RAF radar range at Spade Adam. Leaving Buckton and family for the High Moors. And no sheep or cows in sight. Henry Hofferley. Hawes. I'm getting my Wallace and Gromit Wensleydale cheese, putting on our waterproofs for the worst wind and rain since leaving Land's End. You can see how black it is behind there.
Early morning at Keld, North Yorkshire, in the rain and more rain.
We had to pack up in the rain as well. This is the first of the big puddles on the Pennine Way we came across. We're aiming for the Tan Hill pub, the highest in England, by lunchtime, which is now unlikely. Henry took a long sniff of the air before we got started on this one, and he decided he didn't want to take the trail. He went to the right, but not back as I'd expected. I let him lead us on a 4-mile detour along a road and back to the Pennine Way. Later, I met a couple of hikers who said they'd taken that straight ahead route and found the trail so deeply flooded by a gushing stream that he had to strip to his waist and carry his wife and rucksacks on his shoulders to get across. Motto: always trust a Springer's nose. And Tan Hill pub, the highest in England near the A66, with son Jeff and daughter-in-law Sarah, warm, cozy and dry. We didn't leave till 3:30 p.m. We still had 8 miles to walk across moors in fog and rain. The campsite at Bowes was dark, deserted and wet. High Force, the biggest waterfall in England, the River Tees in full speed. Eventually, Hadrian's Wall, Cumbria, in the drive. Beyond Hadrian's Wall, somewhere before Bellingham, I slipped and fell. It's just over there on the other side of that farthest range. I slipped and fell on the edge of a 100-foot ravine. My backpack dragged me over the edge, and I clung to grass roots for what seemed like hours. "Go get help," I said to Henry, but he just sat and looked at me. "Take my phone out of my pocket, dial 999, I said. I swear I heard him mutter, "You didn't train me to do mountain rescues." We did get safely to Otterburn Army Training Camp safely in the end, where we stopped for 2 nights. I'm going to stop this video for a second because this is a cow attack that came close to being fatal. It is the worst moment of the whole walk, and I put this as a caution. I started filming because we had gone hundreds of miles without any threats from cattle, and I had no reason to think that this would be different. I saw no cars and I had no fear whatsoever. That changed very quickly. This is a short video because I couldn't free Henry to run for safety. He was pulling his lead too hard. I quickly put the camera away, got out a walking stick and started swinging it at the cows as they pressed in.
Yeah.
See the bull on the right. Going the bull.
That's it. Following up behind. Got you recorded.
Don't even think of it. That's it. Right. Cut.
The 10 minutes after this compares only with being mortared and machine gunned in Beirut. Henry was clearly terrified. You could see the bull wasn't involved, but all 50 or so cows were ferocious, bellowing definitely, and the closest tried to skewer me with their horns and stamp my boy to death. Frankly, a red mist came down. If they were going to take my best pal, they'd take me too. I swung that stick, shouted, and charged them. Henry barked too, but they were super quick. I didn't hit any of them. But like most bullies, they backed off a little, enough to give us space to inch backwards up to that bridge, which you can just see, turning and slashing at them as they tried to prod with their horns and stamp with their feet. We reached the bridge, but they wouldn't cross it. We went straight to the bar of this pub on the A68, got a large bowl of water for Henry and 2 double scotches for me. I told our story to the barmaid. She said they were mad cows belonging to a neighbour of her parents. They were border cattle, she said, matriarchal. And perhaps they were not used to walkers, this being land leased from the MOD. 2 days later in Jedburgh, I heard from a local historian at Mary Queen of Scots House that these were reavers' cows, descendants of border clans who had been stealing each other's cattle for centuries. They made their cows dominant in the herd so that nobody would want them, he said. They kill the bull if he doesn't suit them. We reached the Scottish border by taking the A68, not the muddy end of the Pennine Way at Kirkgate that I'd planned. It wasn't a good start to the day. A swarm of midges greeted us when we woke up in our tent at Cotton's Hope Burns Foot, and we decided to skip breakfast and run for it. I wasn't expecting midges to the West Highlands and couldn't get to my head coverings quick enough. We also had the fun of me slipping on grease while walking in the gutter of the A68 and floundering about like an upside-down turtle. It was quite a detached experience looking up at the young faces of the drivers of lorries, cars and buses, blankly manoeuvring around me without stopping. I just couldn't move the blasted thing on my back. Whilst observing it, it was an old boy on a motorbike who actually stopped and pulled me up with a gloved hand. And it were a couple of pensioners who stopped on the other side of the road and came to look after Henry. We reached our hotel at Jedburgh at 9 p.m, 14 hours and 19 miles after we started the day. We got another route map, Jedburgh to Carlops, which is, we're going to Edinburgh, but don't need to go to Edinburgh because we're actually going west. So this is a map through to, let's see, we're going to, Melrose. That's it, and the ship in. So, look, Henry, ship in. So that's where we went in Melrose. They were very generous too. And it was time to take a break, so we got a train down to London, and Henry got a special seat. So we rested and organised. Sought a lot of sleep for Henry and a booze up for Pete. Then we're back again on the up to Scotland, and we've got back to the same little place we stopped at, Carlops, as continual walk, and headed up over the Pentland Hills towards Loch Lomond. You'll notice we're going southwest towards Glasgow, not north, because we're aiming for the West Highland Way. Over the Pentland Hills and along the Union Canal and Falkirk Wheel to Rowadennan Youth Hostel in Loch Lomond. Interestingly, the Scottish youth hostels accept dogs, but the English hostels didn't. And this is an 80-mile-an-hour hurricane. This is a hurricane being Union Canal near Wiltshire, West Lothian. Followed by.
All right, so Thursday the 15th of September. What a difference a day makes, two anyway. It's beautifully sunny and warm, stripped down for the first time since beginning of Scotland. And we're by the Forth and Clyde Canal. Have I got that the wrong way around? Clyde and Forth Canal. That strange noise you're hearing is, of course, Henry enjoying himself, splashing in and out of the canal with a plastic bottle, minus top, of course. And he's having a ball just running along here. And it's very still, very peaceful. Not many people about. 10:45 in the morning. So this is what it's been like for the past few days. Canal and towpath. So Henry has been covering a lot of ground as usual. Probably about 40 miles a day, I suppose. Very pretty.
So here we are at the start of the West Highland Way in Milngavie. Looks like Milngavie, but I'm told it's Milngavie, so it is. And a route map from Roadennan to Fort William, right across the Highlands. So Connacht Hill, Loch Lomond. Another stranger sent me a photo. These are two Scottish Longhorns, but very dozy, just blocked the route. And Henry did not want to go at all. So you can see us, we're on the left there, sneaking around them. Had to be very cautious. These are locals practicing a ceilidh on the shores of Loch Lomond. A deserted picnic table on the West Highland Way near Tyndrum. This is to balance the picture of that bench and that we took in Devon. Glencoe, King's House Hotel, down there on the right in the distance. The climbers bar at the back of this hotel is a wonderful experience. The night we were there, climbers, cyclists, walkers were all together with excellent food and drink and swapping tales with Henry, the centre of attention. But we couldn't stay at the hotel because there was only one dog room and it was already occupied. So we had to go somewhere else, which was next door with Maurice, a reserve fireman with his dog at Inveroran Cottage. And there's Maurice. "Oh, you found us," he greeted us at the gate. I was a bit nonplussed by this. "I didn't phone you," I said. "No, you phoned us," he repeated. That penny dropped with a very loud clang. "Yes," I said, realizing he meant found us. I'm such a hopeless Sassenach. Right, the Devil's Staircase and Rannoch Moor. The old military road near Kinlochleven. Henry looking at Ben Nevis. Oh, he's not looking. Ben Nevis is up to the right. And we're finally at the end of the West Highland Way at Fort William. We're sitting here next to the bronze statue of a walker who is holding his foot with a self-satisfied look that says, "My feet are blistered, but I've made it. What a terrific walk." Yet I've just walked 1,000 miles without a single blister. How? Not only the Salomon boots, but expert advice to wear 2 pairs of socks. One thin pair over my feet and a thicker pair over that. The 2 pairs rub against each other rather than the feet, so thus removing the likelihood of blisters. Right, we're going from Fort William up to Drumnadrochit. The Great Glen Way transferred my backpack and we stopped a few places up here. This one is the Speen Bridge Commander Memorial, and that's Ben Nevis behind, where even in the Commando bar we were denied entry until patrons called, "Come in," after I told them that we just yomped from Limpstone nearly 1,000 miles away.
October the 2nd, Loch Ness. From the Great Glen Way.
And we're now, this is a map from the Drocket to Tain.
It's a forest route above Inverness and Loch Ness, mile after mile after mile. And one little dog that goes backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards.
In Inverness, we stayed at the YMCA, but 8 pubs in the city, 8, wouldn't let us in. We finally ate by the door at a sushi bar, let's say that right. The point to make here is that the law only requires animals to be kept out of food preparation areas, i.e. kitchens. As I understand it, unless the law has changed since 2011, dogs are only denied entry to dining rooms by order of the property's management, not a law of the land. First sign showing John O'Groats, 109 miles. Nearly there, Henry. A9 is almost all the way now. This is Judy Gadsden, last seen at her tent in Stratford-on-Avon, at her croft in Ardross near Ulness. Another person who fed us and leapfrogged us for many miles from Culbokie to Skelbo Castle. One morning I started singing Donald, Where's Your Trousers by Andy Stewart, only because I was trying to recall as many Scottish songs as I could remember. She suddenly asked, why are you singing that? I explained and asked why. She said, because I wrote the song on the other side. She had a copy of the vinyl 45. And there it was, Dancing in Kyle. Judy, lyrics by Judy Pritchard, her maiden name. She'd been receiving royalties from the international sale of the record since 1960. And this was the first year her agent said no one had bought the record. Of course, mostly they're buying it for Donald, Where's Your Trousers? Her royalty days were over. Henry, I said, we're with somebody famous. Now, if there's anybody out there still falling asleep, or Scottish, or both, I'm going to sing a bit of Judy's song, badly, I'm afraid. When the sun has gone down on the dark West Islands, our work is all done for a while. Then we gather together, whatever the weather, and drive to the Dancing in Kyle. Now there's Mary and Duncan and Morgan, Callum, Fiona and Kenna and Dawn, and we're driving from Dorney on Glenegit and Cullennan and laughing as we race along. There's more to it if you want it, but I don't think so. Back to a route map, Tain to Ulster, Caithness. Mostly a jagged, barren coastline, very attractive. The Glenmorangie distillery near Tain, we did a tour of that, and I got a bottle, and it's now my favourite tipple. The latest wind turbine blade, which is the length of an aircraft wing, going left and going up into the mountains. Also got the distance there, 66 miles, I think. Just off the A9 at the village of Brora, we were denied entry yet again at a pub, but then admitted by the protesting customers. No sooner had I sat at a table than Henry stood up and moved across the aisle to sit next to an old man on his own. The man gently stroked him until a waiter came out with food, and I started to pull Henry away. I didn't want the waiter to trip over the lead. Leave him, said the old man fiercely. Leave him, which I did. Henry stayed with him till we left. That's Angus, said the customer next to me. He's a sheep farmer. His dog died 3 months ago. He had no one else. You will have got the picture by now. 47 miles, Henry. The clearances relate to sites where landowners sent crofters away to make way for more profitable sheep farming. An evocative emigrant statue is nearby. This is the Gun Clan Plot and Heritage Centre. John O'Groats, 3 miles! But will we make it? The weather was terrible. High winds blew away my Little Hounds for Heroes sign. There it is. Recovered. There was heavy rain and hail. It was so bad and so dark that cars stopped on the road and we had to shelter from horizontal rain at a broken down filling station. I received a phone message from a man who said he was with the RAF mountain rescue team waiting for us at the top of the last hill before John O'Groats. He wanted to know when we would reach them. I don't know. 2 p.m? 3? Henry certainly doesn't want to go any further. They called again. Can we get to them by 2:30? Maybe. I looked at my watch, went on my knees to Henry to urge him on. One last little bit. Come on, old pal. Mrs. O'Groats biscuits? He did reluctantly move his weary limbs and was made a fuss of by the waiting RAF team. Gave him a nibble. He was soaking up there. We're right at the very top here. And then this is the RAF Mountain Rescue Team. They come up from Lossiemouth on the other side of the Moray Firth, and they escorted us into John O'Groats. Anna called, amazingly, as I was 100 yards from the finish line, with supporters all the way round. Perfect timing. The finish line, literally on the road. Henry and I embrace on the line. And then one last amazing thing. In the wind and rain at the top of Britain, an 11-year-old boy, a total stranger, stepped forward and handed me a £10 note. For the doggies, he said. His name was Aaron, and it was all his pocket money. He and his father were visiting from Kent. He'd found out what we were doing only 5 minutes earlier. His father was so amazed at his son's actions, he later gave Hounds for Heroes £500. And then I found out, why the RAF guys kept asking me when we would be arriving. It was to tell Wing Commander Sarah Macmin, boss of 202 Squadron at RAF Lossiemouth, she's there bottom left, that she could crank up the engines of her Sea King and fly the 75 miles across the Moray Firth in a 70-mile-an-hour gale to give us a salute, a counterbalance to the Navy at Land's End. The RAF was not to be denied. Wing Commander Macmin went on to be a group captain and the highest ranking female aviator in the RAF. All the fellows and people there, by the way, were from the search and rescue community. They'd all come together to say, good job. Henry, yeah, knackered. Oh, we have to get that one. Henry did get his bone from Mrs. O'Groats, alias Val, ex-RAF and dog lover, and one of the earliest to offer us accommodation at her home near John O'Groats. On the train home from Thurso, overnight sleeper from Inverness. Henry and Pete's first place award for the best Le Jog journey of 2011. Hooray! And finally, well, Crufts 2012, handing over a £12,000 check. Another £1,000 came in later to Alan Parton, Hounds founder, and Henry. And that's it. That's the end. Phew.
Thank you so much, Peter. That's absolutely fascinating. Fantastic story. Incredibly heartwarming story of human and canine endeavour. So we've got lots of questions. So Chris, first of all, asks, you mentioned using a 2.5-inch OS map. how many did you need for the whole journey?
Oh my goodness me. I can't think. They were all in batches of 6, something like that, and they came about once a week. So I'd probably think about 80 or 90
Wow.
in total.
You still got them all?
Well, it's interestingly, I do, and I had an arrangement with the Ordnance Survey because they were getting rid of a lot of older maps from their library. At the time, they were switching to the new digital series and were focused totally on that. And they said, "Oh, you can keep them." So I've got a load of maps.
Excellent. So Susan would like to know, how difficult was it to plan the route, and did you have to alter your plans along the way?
Oh, this is
Did you
where
have changed it in any way?
Oh yes, it was easier enough at the beginning because they were all holiday places. It's when you get into the Midlands and you get a bit further up, and there's and Scotland and places. It depends on the time of year. So you had to, if you got a place that you finally could get into a B&B that accepted a dog, and this is where Anna came in. She sat on the phone an awful lot, and it was turned down one time of the, "Oh no, we don't have dogs, don't have dogs." And so the few that you did find, you basically went for. Now they might not necessarily be where you wanted them to be. And in fact, if we looked at those OS survey maps, there was one up in the Glasgow-Edinburgh corridor. We were just off the motorway, and we had to pick out one which was increasingly to the west of the map, and looking over to the other side of another map to the east of that. So in fact, there was only 5 miles difference between the two, but they were the only ones that we could get any accommodation to. So I only had one day, I only walked for 5 miles. The whole day.
That was a holiday.
Oh, absolutely.
So Susan also would like to know, have you replaced Henry, and if so, do you still go on long walks with his successor?
Henry, utterly irreplaceable. I mean, he was so exceptional, and I mean, we've had dogs before, and we have one now, Bella, and she's now 5. All she ever knew was him, and she's an American cocker. She's not the kind of dog you can take for a long walk, really. She's a house dog and so on, but she misses him terribly now.
Yeah. So going back to the trip, the contents of your backpack, how much were for Henry's needs, and what did you pack for him?
Well, he obviously needed his. No, what did he? Didn't need very much, really. I did carry that little harness around, the one that said Henry, that was made in Wales. So that came with us everywhere until we got to, I think it was Yorkshire, and my sister took it off us then. He didn't need very much. He just, because we kept on taking fresh food. The Burns dog food people did, as a sponsorship thing, they kept sending us here, they sent them to the places we knew we were going to be at every week. Okay. There would be 4 or 5 little packets of these things. So we come in and they say, "We've got your maps, we've got your food." And we only ever had to take a small amount of that for him.
And Anne would like to know, did you have to take any precautions to prevent his paws getting sore?
That's another interesting question. The answer to that is yes and no. We were advised by our vet that it wouldn't help. It would help on the roughest parts of the Scotland, like the military road, which is up bricks and stuff along there. And I did try some little pads that you can attach around their paws, but of course they sweat through their paws. If anybody takes a dog through snow, for instance, they will find that they get snowballs because it's the sweat coming out of their paws that gets ice balls. So you've got these 2 So most of the time, he just simply used his natural pores. There was one time when he did have a little hole, and Anna sent up some medication, some stuff, something to basically cover it. And within a couple of days, the pad had sealed together, so he kept going. We didn't have to take him to a vet.
That's good. Christine would like to know, how did Henry behave on his return? Did he expect to continue to go out for 12-mile walks every day?
2 days he took to rest. 2 days. And he said, right, he's by the door. Where are we going now? Oh, yes. No, we've continued. He continued on, and we got back into doing some runs and things like that. And so he kept on going.
Excellent. On a different note, Chris would like to know, how much wild camping did you have to do?
Very little, really. There wasn't because we were never that far from habitation. And we weren't looking to carry a lot of water, for instance, with us all the time, or our own food. I think there were maybe 3 or 4 times where we basically just said, oh, let's just sleep here. And because when you're doing this kind of a trip, you're actually programmed. So the thing about the lady who propositioned us, we had to keep going towards the hotel because we were booked in that night, and basically we had to be at a certain place at a certain time. Although Warminster was obviously not going to work, and but we did get there eventually. We just keep going, until we wear out like we did in Jedburgh.
And Susan would like to know, did the whole journey take more or less time than you had planned?
I think it took a little more time. It was really 3 months. I think we figured on that because we were aiming to do no more than really 15 miles a day. I think we did plenty of 10 and 12 mile walks, and a few that were 23 and 20, that kind of thing. But it pretty much was what we imagined.
Yeah. Were there ever times that you thought, what on earth am I doing here?
Particularly when it's pouring with rain.
Yeah.
In Yorkshire for 4 days in a row, non-stop all the time. Yeah. And you have to pack up if you're going to move on because you've got another place to go, unexpected. Then you have to just pack everything up in the rain.
Yes. Yeah.
Not
very comfortable. Last couple of questions then. Ramesh would like to know, what did you think about while you were walking?
It's absorbing information. Sometimes I carry a tune in my head. Sometimes I sort of think, this is wonderful, and how great it is. And sometimes it was, oh, watch out for those cows. It's the same as the kids coming up and asking me, why wasn't I listening to music? Today everybody has to have their ears plugged in. And I just wasn't. I was just absorbing everything. There was something different every time. It was either the road was different or the where I was at, broad open spaces, or in the forest where you can't see very much. It's just absorbing. That's all.
Fantastic. So final question, a couple of people have asked this one, and I guess that's because it's on all of our minds at the moment. Ramesh and Christine would like to know, where did you get your hair cut?
Well, did I get my hair cut? I think it was probably only when we came back. I think Anna cut my hair when I came back. I think my sister cut my hair when we got to Yorkshire. Apart from that, I think this is the longest it's been for quite a while. So it hasn't been cut for 3 months.
Next week. Next week, and we're done. So thank you very much, Peter. That's been absolutely fascinating account of your journey. So we're just about to close. So thank you to Simon and our tech team for working hard to bring this webinar to you, the members. As we've mentioned, we have recorded this talk and it will be available to view via a link sent out shortly. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to know how we did, both good and bad. So please either email techteam@elmbridgeu3a.org to let us and Peter know. I'm sure Peter would like some feedback, that'd be great. And we will be sending out a survey. So if you could spend just a couple of minutes filling that in, that would be fantastic. So all that remains for me to say is to thank you, the viewers, for your support and to mention that our next webinar will be on Wednesday, the 5th of August, and will be given by Tim Morris of the Brooklands Museum, who will be telling us about Fast Women, Fast Track. So thank you very much and goodbye from the team. So until next month, stay safe, stay healthy and stay happy. Thank you. Goodbye.